things that I hang on my wall. And yeah, that's I got his picture, and I got the certificates when I went to the White House to get the Champion of Change Award.
Oh, you received that at the White House?
Yes.
Wow, how was that experience?
It was great. It was really an interesting experience.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again to all our listeners to another fantastic episode of Edu Unlocked with your host, Ashish Fernando. This is a podcast not about the typical institutional higher ed things, how things are done at an institution. This is a podcast about the people behind the ship, behind the ecosystem that's higher ed, people who are actually driving change. And we talk about their lives and how they came about into higher ed and how they do the things they do. And joining us today is one such inspirational person. Please welcome Don Welch, who's the Chief Information Officer at New York University, one of our proud customers. We've been working with them for a long time, and I am really excited to talk to Don today. Don leads technology on campus of one of the most iconic universities in the world. NYU is known world over. I'm from India. I've always dreamt when I came to the US to be at NYU or schools like that. So it's one of those, the top premier institutions, and just a land of innovation, and everything that happens at NYU. Don's a big part of that, with his career spanning in leadership roles at Penn State, at Dartmouth, now NYU. Don, you bring a really unique perspective and an amazing amount of knowledge to the ecosystem. So thank you so much for being on our podcast.
No, thank you. Thank you for that introduction.
Fantastic. Don, I'm excited to talk all things NYU, all things technology, your perspective on AI and things that are changing the landscape. But before all of that, I always like to start the podcast with our listeners asking you one important question. Why higher ed? Why not something else? How did you land here? What's the background? What's the history of you coming to this space?
Yeah, so I went to West Point and spent 25 years in the Army. I started off as a typical infantry officer and some special missions kinds of things. But the way the U.S. Army works is you have a career that alternates between the field army and some other specialty. So I had the opportunity to go to graduate school and back to West Point to teach computer science. In doing that, I really fell in love with technology. Uh, when I retired from the Army, I dabbled in the commercial world, but really I found out that, I missed this sense of service, and I really wanted to get back into higher ed. So after that few years in retail, I had the opportunity and have been back in higher ed ever since. So as crazy as it can be sometimes, I feel it is all worth it because it's such an important purpose, and the things that we do for our society in both research and developing young people to go on and move things forward into the future.
I love that, Don. I mean, just thinking back on how I landed up in ed tech and higher ed is just, I feel like I had a similar sort of moment as you. I came to the US, studied, and I was working for other industries. And higher ed is just that one place where I think innovation kind of starts there, because most of the innovation starts in higher ed but ends
Mhm.
up in other industries. And I felt the urge to just bring it back to higher ed and just kind of deploy here. So I love that about you. If you were to do anything else, let's say today, you were to say, okay, yes, done, I've done my bit for higher ed, and I want to go do this other thing. Is there anything, like be a pilot or something?
Yeah. So in a more in a realistic sense. So I've been in the Army, and of course, being old, my body can't do those physical things so much anymore. Uh, but I think if I was going to do a third career, it might be something in law enforcement.
Oh
I
wow. Okay.
the I think it's another one of those things that are necessary. It's really important that we do it well, and do it with the right set of values, the right integrity, and so forth. And so that's something that maybe if I had taken a different path in life, I would be along that path.
Okay, wow, interesting. It's coincidentally the week of Charlie Kirk's death and kind of higher ed and law enforcement coming together. I've been just kind of thinking about all that. I live very close to where that happened this week in Utah. And I have friends who work at, executive roles at UVU who are working with law enforcement. And it's just kind of, it's first of all awesome to see how both those come together so
Yeah.
well, and how they're coordinating. But yeah, it's just I had to make that reference because both of the things. I mean, you're in higher ed, and your interest in law enforcement. I've been just thinking about exactly those two things all week.
Yeah. Yeah, sad, but it does make us think and consider the bigger picture when tragedies like this happen.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's, yeah, it's, this is probably digressing, but I feel like the US does a good job of bringing law enforcement and higher ed, work together. Like in
Yes,
India, you don't have a police department inside a university that's just dedicated to the institution. And so I'm just, a lot of things that go through my mind when I just, think about this.
yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. Let's switch to what you do in technology and what you think are the core values. I've worked with quite a few CIOs at institutions. Some are very tech focused and implementation and product focused. Some are very business of things. It's about the student and that experience, and it not necessarily has to be AI. Some are just agnostic of all of that and are kind of like a president's helping hand in just understanding how to bring the entire environment together digitally. What's been sort of your theme and guiding principles in your role as a CIO?
Yeah, so I will plot a fourth path for you. So I had a good
Awesome.
as you know, I have a PhD in computer science. So you might think I'd be more of a technical person. And a few years ago, I was talking with a good friend of mine, and we were talking about my challenges at work. And he said, "Just how much are you actually involved with technology?"
Mhm.
And I said, "Well, if you count me sitting in a room and other people are talking about technology." Maybe 15% of my job. And he was really surprised. It's really nice to understand the technology and what's being done. But I think, the key, if you're in a senior position like I am, is you orchestrate the people.
Mm,
And so you have all these people who are very talented and very motivated, and you want to make sure they know what needs to be done, make sure they have the resources that need to be done, make sure they develop so that they have the skills and the abilities to do things, and getting the team to solve these problems and make these breakthroughs and deliver these services to the university. That's much more effective than my involvement could ever be. So basically, um, my ability to get things done is all through my people, and my focus is to get those people to be as empowered and as capable and as productive as possible. The that if you, in my mind, if you have reached the pinnacle of leadership, you're the ultimate leader, and you're going to sit in your office and play solitaire all day because your team knows exactly what to do, has the skills, the resources to go off and do it. I haven't got there yet, but would like to get there at some point. I think really at the senior leadership level, it is all about your about people.
I love that, and I love the just the candid way you said it. Like, yeah, if you've got your people to a point where you can actually sit and play solitaire and things are just happening. I just love the way you put it there. Um, why do people, I mean, this is about bringing the best of the best to your teams to do that. And NYU, of course, as a brand, has its own reasons why people want to work for it, but mainly people work for people. So in your case, what do you think would be the main reason people want to come work for Don?
So uh, there's, obviously, if you're going to sell good people to come and take a job, the the institution is important. So what problems need to be solved, and what skills do they bring? Is that a good match? The culture of the team. Are they going to fit in and be part of a team? I absolutely believe that the team is much more powerful than just the collection of individuals in it. When you work as a team, you can deliver, excuse me, so much more. So that culture is important, and then uh, as understanding whether someone would take a job to work for me is how will I enable them to be successful? What do I do to make sure that they can accomplish the things that they do, that they can grow? I look at, not everybody will necessarily want to, but I look at every one of my team members um, should be ready to be a CIO. And
Mm,
so part of my role is to prepare them to do that. Some have gone off and are doing that. Some are, actively, that's what they want for the next step. And others who isn't necessarily what they're looking for in their professional career, still understanding what a CIO does, what makes them successful, will set them up to be more successful in the rest of their professional life because they have to work in that environment to do so. So I think that developing all that time and effort you put into developing people, pays off in large multiples as people come back and do things, can do so much more than you thought of. I was talking with one of my team members this morning. And as I said, my job is not to have the best ideas. My job is just to identify the best ideas and then identify it and resource it and make it happen. So, and, and I've got a really smart team and they come up with a lot of good ideas. And I do my best to me stay out of their way and also get other obstacles out of their way.
I love that. I mean, in the end, it's the team that makes the dream. So I'm glad you kind of go with that philosophy, and I'm sure that's part of the uh, a big part of the recognition you got from the White House as champion of change with
Yep.
the fiber optic project. That's a $140 million project, that infrastructure project in 2012. I read about it, and I'm sure it's a combination of your strategic mind and how you do it, but also the people you put together for that.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about that project and what success came out of it.
Yeah. So going back, remember we had the Great Recession in 2008 and nine, and then the then President Obama he came up with a couple of rounds, the large stimulus package to try and get the economy on track, and a small part of that was funding to build broadband out to rural areas. At the
Mhm.
time, I was the CEO of a nonprofit network and IT services company. And in our mission was providing services to all these colleges and universities and K through 12 and libraries throughout Michigan. And we really struggled in the more rural parts, the upper parts of Michigan, especially the Upper Peninsula. So when this opportunity came up, we had the opportunity to build these fiber optic pathways throughout the upper Midwest, and to partner with commercial providers. Where our market was the public sector, we could bring along commercial providers who would do it with the homes and businesses, and move economic development and educational development forward
Hmm.
with that. And I think one of the reasons that we earned the award was not only just all the technical part, and if you've ever built fiber, you could pave all the roads with all the paperwork you have to do to just string some fiber from some telephone poles. But anyways, the other thing, but working with commercial partners was tricky. Some of them were competitors with each other. Some of them wanted to compete with us, and but we had to get everybody to play nicely together. And I think we did. Pretty much, but enough that we got it all built. We got a lot of services, additional services out there, and we were really quite successful. Set up a long-term, sustainable network that is still serving all the homes and businesses up there, and in fact, they're building off of it. So that was why we did it. And you're absolutely right. It's not something I could do by myself, but I had a great team, and we just worked really well together, and we're able to pull this off.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, I read about it. Is that connected to? I see President Obama's picture behind you on the wall.
Yeah, it is. So I've got a couple of things that I hang on my wall, and yeah, that's I got his picture, and I got the certificates when I went to the White House to get the Champion of Change award.
Wow. Oh, you received that at the White House?
Yes.
Wow. How was that experience?
It was great. It was really, an interesting experience to go and see it. You can go by as a tourist and get a tour of the White House, which in itself is pretty impressive. But to be brought in and be part of the ceremony, and get to meet all the people, and meet other people who were being getting the reward, it was a really nice experience. And as I said when I was interviewed about it, I was the figurehead that got to do that. Back in Michigan, it was my company that was actually doing all the work. So, like
Yeah.
a typical CEO, I get to take the credit, and other people do the real work.
Yeah, yeah. I say that all the time. I feel like we're CEOs because we're good spokespersons, we're
Yeah,
spokespeople, and we can talk the talk. But yeah, the work is actually done by, like, same for me. I really appreciate the team that does the work behind the scene for me. I get to just smile on podcasts and go for, like, today I'm gonna be on the USS Midway for the
yeah,
foundation dinner reception for National University, and just meet with people. But yeah, there's so much that goes behind the scene, and I'm
yeah.
so glad people like you recognize all of that work that happens behind the scene, and taking the credit. So that's amazing. So switching to your work at NYU now, there's a lot that's changing every day, right? There's
Mhm.
new things coming up, big bets on AI, and I feel like finally higher ed's also gotten into that jet stream of AI and automation and things of that nature. And a lot of that comes to you for, like, a strategic sort of direction, I'm pretty sure, as a CIO. Uh, and it's hard to make decisions just knowing the little we know about AI and how it's going to change things. But
Yeah.
you're asked to make those big decisions, like, hey, how much budget and what do we do now? How are you going about it?
So I will be somewhat of a contrarian. The So AI, is really, it depends on how you want to count them. 26 different programming techniques that have been around for a long time,
Hmm.
uh, and I think the principles that have guided us in all the software and technology improvements and innovation and breakthrough that we've had over the last 50, 60 years still apply with AI. So if we as technologists, understand, uh, somewhat what what it's going to be used for, what data it's operating on, the reliability, the output, what effort is there to maintain it, what kinds of support is going to be needed for people to use it effectively. All those different things that have served us well in the past, we need to apply in the AI future. So of course there are questions about what we invest in, and of course at a university we at NYU have incredibly strong faculty researchers who are doing some amazing things, pushing all different types of AI type technology forward. We have faculty who are innovating in the classroom, using it differently, getting students to think differently about how they use specifically LLMs, and so forth. Uh, and then, of course, like any organization, we're a bureaucracy and we've got a lot of back office stuff to do. And so looking for opportunities where we can move that along and do things in a more automated way. Uh, so in most cases, the vendors are going to be ahead of the game. They've got a lot of resources. They will come out with enhancements to their software, and it's incumbent on us to evaluate it before we pay for it, and then to leverage it and use it appropriately. We do have a center of excellence that really kind of specializes in both helping people who want to do projects in AI, whether it's in the classroom or administratively, and also has the capability of developing some things on their own and evaluating things. But getting those people together, at some point, this will mature a lot. Being old, I have this perspective. So I've been through smartphones, I've been through the web, I've been through client server and PCs on desks, in that transition. And so we've had to adapt, and the nature of what people do continues to evolve. When I first started, you might have 15 operators for a mainframe, and now a system administrator can handle hundreds of machines that are much more powerful than those mainframes were. So we need fewer people to be down doing the system administrators, but we need a lot more people who help people leverage the technology, and especially as we think about business processes. Technology is not there for technology's sake. It's there to help improve and speed up business processes, and AI can play a big part of that. Things that are simple enough that we can automate them, whether it's with AI or with other techniques, I think are really going to help and let people focus on the problems that really require humans to solve. We have a specific capability. Our brains are different than computers, and they have tremendous potential. And so the more we can leverage those human brains and not have them do mundane tasks, the better we go. And what's defined as a mundane task is getting more and more difficult as our automation gets more and more capable.
Yeah, that's really well said. I mean, honestly, that last part really hits it home. I always I talk to a lot of people. I work in the Gen AI space, and I do so much with AI in education and enrollment. And there's always a debate on, can it actually do the last mile of emotional connection with students, and I'm still a very big proponent of, no, it just cannot. Even if it were to replicate our exact voice, our tone, and everything. The fact that you know that there's no real John Welch behind this computer on the other side or behind a phone call, that notion itself makes a difference.
Yeah.
And therefore, I don't think even if AI gets there, it's going to be able to solve for that feeling of, yeah, but I'm hearing a real human voice versus an artificial AI, which you have to basically tell the user on the other side that it's AI, right? You have to disclose that, and so once it's disclosed, and I'm talking to an AI, it sounds exactly like John Welch. Will it be okay? I don't think
Yeah.
so,
Well,
right?
I think too, another important aspect is, LLM specifically, but most AI is trained on something. So it's really good at taking things that have already been done and synthesizing them and putting them to use. But it's not so good at coming up with the new creative thing. And that's where I think where the sweet spot is for people. Uh, and right now is if we take away some of these functions from people that are doing things based on what we've done before or doing things we've done before, that can be a little unsettling because people are comfortable with that when they know how to do things. But the value that comes from truly creative, innovative thought is so much greater. Uh, and when I was back in the army in the 1980s, we deployed over to South Korea, and I saw the 3-man shovel. And so the rice paddies, they might have an 8-foot tall wall that needed to be maintained, and so you had one guy at the bottom with a really long handle, and then ropes that attached to the shovel so that they could bring dirt up, get it up 8 feet high to put it on the top of the rice paddy. And very important for what they did at the time, but
Mhm.
you can think of a better use for humans if you could
Mhm.
automate that maintenance of the rice paddy. And that really struck me as a young person that those are the kinds of jobs we want to get away from, where and I think it's pretty easy for people to understand that when it comes to physical jobs. We don't want to dig ditches like we did the Erie Canal. We want bulldozers and so forth, but we want to get rid of the equivalent of white collar work that is the equivalent of the 3-man shovel. Uh, and we want people to focus on, you've got one person with a steam shovel that, and AI can be that steam shovel if we learn how to use it correctly. And I say AI, I mean, all automation really can do that, can be that force multiplier to make us so much more productive.
I love that. I love that, Don. Really, I'm with you on that. I think that's the important part to look at and make sure humans are relevant. Because otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
We're building stuff for ourselves to make ourselves irrelevant. It's not. It shouldn't be the point of every automation. So,
Mm-hmm.
I love your reflections on that. Have there been people in your lifespan who sort of had an impact on how you think and how you deploy technology and how you think of people, especially? Like, it's not because it doesn't come to everybody that, hey, it's not me, it's the people behind me who are actually the ones. Are there any life lessons and people you've learned some of this from?
Yeah. So, throughout my career and my life, I've run into a lot of people that I've learned from, both good and bad examples. One boss that I worked for, I learned everything that I would never do, and and that serves you well. And then there are many bosses that I have tried to emulate and think about and understand what they did, how they handled the situation. So my advice wouldn't necessarily be for any people, but for anyone who's an aspiring leader, to always look at examples of your peers or people that you work for, and understand what they do that is effective, understand who they are and how that meshes in with you. So I'll tell another story of where it was important for me to understand, to learn, about the nature of leadership. So as I said, I was an infantry officer, and that's a real macho profession. Everybody, trying to out masculine each other, physical endurance, how hard you are, and so forth. And anyways, the first company that I commanded, and a company is about, is about 150 people. It was one of the headquarters companies, and we could have women in the company. And so, growing up in this environment that idolized a kind of a male warrior ethos, I had two women who were platoon leaders underneath me, and one of them really tried to fit in with the men and be as masculine as possible. And the other one just stayed with her personality. And if you could, someone who is just bubbly and giggly, and I don't know if this is true, if I remember it right, whether or not she brought her teddy bear with her to the field, but that it could have been her. Anyway, she was one of the best officers I ever worked with. She led from who she was. From her personality. She didn't try to be someone she wasn't. That authentic, the authenticness of her she was able to gain the trust of her soldiers. She was able to influence people, and she was smart and all of that. But that was a real important lesson to me, that leadership has to come from who you are as a person. So, getting back to the idea of watching people, watching other leaders, what part of what that leader is or does do you want to take and fits your personality and your leadership style? That, is important for me in my growth. And then since that, say I've stolen as many good ideas as I can from all these great people that I worked with, and I put away in a closet where I will never touch them, these aspects from other leaders that I don't want to bring to the table.
Yeah, but those exist inside that closet. So if you ever come across something similar, you're like, oh, it's in that closet. I'm not going there.
Well, I think the important thing is if that closet opens, they start to escape in me. I've got to
Yeah.
realize that and not let them out, because, I don't want to be that kind of person.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. I love the way you compartmentalize those two. That's awesome. You've come across so many people in throughout your expansive career, and it's just I'm sure it's a I'm reaching 40 now in a not even a couple of years lesser, but I feel like in my maybe around 15, 16 years of my career, I kind of look at the world the same way. It's, oh my God, here are the people I want to kind of follow and the way they lead and the things they do. And then here are the ones I don't want to follow. And then the brain is like always like, even if you say don't, it's like still focusing on it, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
the don't look at the pink elephant and you get this visual of a pink elephant. And so it's been still a learning lesson for me
Yeah.
of how to compartmentalize. But the way you even with the clarity that you said, the closet and everything, you've kind of got there. I feel that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think, it's really easy if you start to do a good job, and then you think, oh, I'm doing a good job, to let those things out, and then all of a sudden, it's a slap to the face to realize that's not the way I wanted to do it. And, either, you make a big mistake, or you realize that. But I think it's really that those course corrections in yourself. I mean, sometimes people will do it for you, and that, but they won't always. And it's certainly better if you can identify it in yourself before others, feel aggrieved enough to bring it up to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Now, if you were to look at your younger self and everything you've done, you've now sort of had some time to reflect on the years you've spent. Uh, does work-life balance even exist as a thing? Um, and
I
how do
think
you think about it? Yeah.
it does. At this point, I have um, four wonderful children
Wow.
have uh, who I have a wonderful relationship with my wife. My children have chosen great partners that are just really impressive people on their own. But I think that is a testament to to those children. And you know so this is my theory on things. Sometimes you have to sacrifice, but if you're working together with your spouse, you can make sure that that things in the family get covered. But you can make choices. One of the things that I started doing when I got out of the army is I would get up early and exercise. So get that out of the way so that I could be into work early, but be home for dinner, every night, or as many nights as possible. And, maybe you do work after dinner or whatever, but make those trade-offs, knowing that your family is important and your life is important. And as I tell the people who report to me, um, if you are not happy and healthy, you are not going to be as good a leader as as you would be. When you're feeling crummy, or you're overworked or whatever, you're going to be short with your team. You're not going to get as much out of them. So understanding what's important, getting what's important done, focusing on that, but also understanding what's important for your out of work life,
Hmm.
and making sure that you put the right priority on that. And it's going to change on different jobs and different times and so forth. That's especially as you have more responsibility. That's going to happen. But I think it's possible. It certainly has worked out for me. I might have just been lucky, but uh, I did set a priority, and uh, could I have done other more things professionally? Maybe I could have. Maybe I could, but in some cases, I chose not to strive for them. But here it is towards the end of my career, and I can't complain. I'm very happy. I'm in a role that I really like. I feel I'm making a difference. I'm well compensated. Gosh, what more could you ask for? And but along the way, I've got this wonderful relationship with my children and family, and yeah, so I think it is absolutely possible. Not always, not always easy, but as long as you're trying, I think you're going to be in the right path.
That's awesome, Don. Thank you for sharing that. What's so there's a lot of our listeners who typically, they listen to the podcast because they're like, okay, let's hear from CIOs and C-level folks at institutions to learn how I can get there. So if you were to roll back time, I'm sure the 35-year-old you wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to be a CIO at NYU. But
Nope.
the 35-year-old you was thinking, okay, how do I structure my life and my career towards a potential path? It could have been a CIO at NYU, but it could have been probably some other C-level tech person at some other company. What did you tell your 35? Now that you know what you know, what would you tell that 35-year-old of focus on this, focus on the journey, not the goal, whatever. Tell us what
Yeah.
your thoughts are.
So a couple months ago, I was on a panel at a conference about career path, and the way I would sum up my career is it seemed like a good idea at the time. Uh, the and what the path I followed, and certainly not an easy one to emulate, since I spent 25 years in the army, and If you're not already in the service, then that's kind of passed you by. But
Yeah.
uh, while I was in the Army, and once I got out of the Army, I really just looked ahead at the next job, and it was like, what do I want to do now? And is it something that really excites me, that I'm passionate about? Is it something that I think I can be successful in? And I really went into every job uh, kind of like this could be it for the rest of my life. Now I get bored fairly easily, so my longest actual job was about 9 years, but that was because during the 9 years I was CEO of a company, we kind of went through four different reinventing ourselves, and the but but I think if you're really excited about your job, if you're passionate about your job, you're learning these things, you feel you're making an impact, that's preparing you for everything else in your career. Now, obviously, if you want to be a CIO in higher ed, you need to be in the higher ed industry. Pretty much, there's a few exceptions. If you want to be a CIO in the financial sector, yeah, you got to get into that at some point. And there are some limitations there, but I think it's really less about the industry and more around what is that the job's going to ask for, and especially in technology. So when I had the opportunity to come to NYU, one of the things that they were really looking for is to up their game in security. And I had taught cybersecurity. I had been a chief information security officer, and I had good experience in security. So number one, that was something I think is really important and passionate about. But number two, it was something that, I think I can be a success. I think I can make a difference. And then they were also they're looking for someone with my leadership style and so forth. So at each job along the way, I really looked at what am I going to be doing, and does it really excite me? It probably would be better if you had some long-term vision, but every West Point graduate thinks they're going to be a general, not necessarily. So we graduate as a second lieutenant, and we start we think about that, but not all, like, I decided I didn't want to, and I really wanted to do technology. So I took myself off that career path. So while it's good to have a long range goal, to be going somewhere rather than nowhere, I think you have to be as flexible as possible because your perspective changes. What I really enjoy doing is very different now than it was when I was in my 20s, my 30s, my 40s. It's kind of, you go, been there, done that, move on to something else.
I love that. I love that, Don. Thank you. I was actually listening and taking some notes for myself. That was a very, very, selfish question because I am in higher ed and I've been in higher ed for about 10 years, and I really look up to people like yourself who are CIOs at institutions like NYU, and it takes a little bit of a grit, determination, and the confidence to run that role for such a large institution that impacts so many students every year. So it's amazing to hear from you, and that's how I'm kind of looking at my life too, right? Is what can I learn on a daily basis that
Yeah.
fits in somewhere in the future within higher ed? Like higher ed is like the so I think the crux of what you said was it's you got to pick your theme. Like if you got to be in financial services, then that's your theme. Don't keep moving around because otherwise it's going to be hard to get to a C level
Yeah.
because spend some time in industry one and then two and then three. Nobody's going to want you to lead at that level. I think that's a really good takeaway. A lot of people say, oh, in 21st century career change is norm, and
Hmm.
it's okay to do that, but I think you have to be very careful within that thought process of career change and make sure you're not changing it entirely. Like I'm
Yeah.
totally against that, like yeah.
Yeah. I think, the 2 points there. So one is in making job changes and career changes. I think if we think of industries as being horizontal and and promotions as being vertical, you want to be careful about your steps and not go too many steps, too many industries or whatever there. So that next move, it's obviously important that you're successful, for your long-term career, and making sure that it's not too different. Another comment I wanted to make is you talked about confidence necessary to lead at this level, and I would also say you have to understand that you really have no business being in the role you're in because you don't know what you're doing. The If you're overconfident, you don't listen to people because you
Mhm.
think you have the right idea. And there are lots of people with lots of perspectives and lots of good ideas. And being humble enough to listen and sometimes change, I think, is so important to being effective at this level. And sometimes you get people as leaders who are afraid to admit that they were wrong. And everybody knows they're wrong. Not admitting it doesn't hide anything. Uh, and So I always feel, yep, when you own up and change direction.
I love that, Don. I think this is a good sort of summary of your initial your inceptive life into higher ed and what you did there and sort of your learnings. um, there might be some that we probably missed here. Is there any story, a person, anything that you'd love to share with us in terms of what's been like, what some of your biggest impacts in your life and journey?
We've touched on a lot of things, but okay, one thing that we haven't touched on, and this is something I look for when I'm interviewing and looking to hire people,
Okay.
is
Yeah.
it's some that you're curious. Uh, so people who like to learn, who love to learn, that's really important. As you pointed out, things are changing. People are probably going to change jobs far more frequently than I have or my parents and so forth as we go forward in the future. So continually learning how to learn so that you can grow, you can seize opportunities and things that seem to be unrelated to your job. If you're just curious, I was interviewing an engineer or someone for an engineering job one time, and I asked him like what he did for a hobby, and he restored old cars. And so I started asking him about how he did it and how all these different um, questions about it. And afterwards we talked about it. He said, "Ah, I thought you're asking me that because you don't care anymore, and that interview's over, and I'm not going to get hired, and and so forth." But what I was really getting at is trying to understand how he thinks, how he learns, how he solves these problems and doing this for a hobby, explaining it. I got some really good insight, and it turns out, he was one of this great team that helped us build the fiber optic network. Um,
Wow.
and But I got that insight from him. So that's something, if you could find people who are curious about the world and understand things, that's an important lesson for me that I think it has helped me, but also that I look for when I look for leaders.
I genuinely mean this. I mean, I've hired hundreds of people for the company. Right now, we have like an employee base of 140, but for the companies I worked for, what you just said, it sounds so simple, but I'm like, why did I not think of that
Yeah,
when I did interviews? Because I mean, you're absolutely right. If I have somebody and I ask them, "Hey, what do you do outside of work and everything?" and they say, "I like to ski." Okay, how do you improve on your skiing? What do you do? And if
yeah,
they go in the detail of how they think about the activity they're passionate about, you're right. It will tell me so much about how they think about anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You would have come up with it eventually because you're young, And that these things I didn't all know when I got out of school.
I'm gonna use this one for sure in my interviews because I
Good.
mean, so I always I do part of that. I think you've gotten me a full way there. What I do is I always start by telling interviewees, let's keep your resume aside. I don't
Yeah.
care about it. Great, you might have used AI to build it or you actually wrote it. It doesn't matter. And I asked them about one of their previous jobs that they really loved,
Hmm.
and I try to go deep into why and how and what.
Yeah.
But because people are very comfortable about the things they've done rather than trying to interview for the things that we're expecting them to do.
Right.
But you're taking it even one step further to say, I'm going to go to an even more comfort zone by actually asking you about the things you're passionate about outside of work. Do you have
Hmm.
a hobby? If the answer is no, nothing, then you already you already know that's a reject. But if you have a hobby, okay, tell me how you learn more about it. It's just amazing. I love it. Simple. It's actually a simple, practical
Hmm.
thing to do. Awesome. This is good. Any what do you talking about things outside of work? What keeps you motivated and going outside of NYU and work? And you talked about family, and now they're married. They have their partners, so they're onto their own thing. What's Dawn's go-to in the evenings?
I like to watch TV with my wife. We'll watch a show, but if my kind of amateur passion is history.
Oh
So
wow.
I read I read a lot of history or listen to history podcasts when I'm exercising and and so forth. So that to me is really it's fascinating to try and keep the world in perspective. And humans have been humans for a long time, and we still do the same stupid stuff we've done for years. And there's a lot we can learn from that. And we do. We grow. I mean, things are much better today than they were, years ago. It's kind of a bumpy path up, but it's good to keep all that in perspective.
Yeah, pretty awesome, Don. Thank you so much for sharing that. And honestly, just thank you. An hour just ran by, and I didn't realize it. I'm just looking at the timestamp. But this has been an amazing interview and podcast. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you. It's really been, I've really enjoyed talking with you. I was very impressed with when you sent me the sheet that you clearly have thought about this a lot. So I was excited about this, and it turned out to be just as great as I hoped it would be.
Oh, absolutely. No, the pleasure is all ours, though, and this is what we try to do is talk to people like yourselves because we're learning so much. I mean, we're building this. Edmo is all about AI for enrollment, and when we deploy AI in institutions, we have to be really careful because you're dealing with the student, and they're young, and how it interacts with them, and education really cares about all that. Higher ed cares about all that. So just talking to people like you just helps us deploy AI the
Hmm.
way it's supposed to be. So these conversations help a lot, and also it helps all of our listeners. So I want to just thank our listeners for tuning in today on this amazing episode of EDU Unlocked with me, Ashish Fernando, and our guest for today, Don Welch, the CIO at New York University. So thank you to all our listeners as well.